Hello, all. I am a total newbie to grouting, but I figured I would share my lessons learned. So I took a workshop over the weekend. It was like a 2.5 hour workshop on mosaic art. This is my first time doing anything with mosaic art, but I can already tell you guys, I am in love. So, anywho, we had to wait 24 hours for the glue to dry. So she left us with these little kits that we could use to grout the next day. So she did like a little tutorial and showed us how to do it. And so this is me attempting to do it. Okay. So there's the kit. The kit has the grout inside. And then she also included a plastic glove, a single glove. And then all you need to do is add water to the grout. So I'm just putting some gloves on here. I have some gloves at home because I'm like a crazy crafter. And I am going to take off my watch because if any grout got onto my iWatch, I think I would die. Like literally die. So I am taking all of the precautions right now. I'm just opening it up for the first time just to see kind of what's in it. And I also got a plastic spoon from the kitchen in order for me to mix the grout. So I have the mosaic piece of art, the water, plastic spoon, and a little container to mix the white grout. And she had white grout and charcoal gray, like a really dark gray grout. But when she looked at my design, she thought that the white grout would be best, and I agreed. So in her instructions, she said, don't pour all of the grout in there because you might need a little bit more to thicken it up. So I left a little bit in the bag. And now I'm about to add water. So first mistake, you see how that was just a little bit of water? It was perfect. I meant to just continue to add a little bit of water, but you see how much water I added? That was too much because she said the consistency of the grout should be like peanut butter. And I have like soup, like a thick soup, but ugh. So I really was worried because there was no way really for me to just pour out the liquid without also pouring out some of the grout. So I was hoping that the extra grout that I left in the bag would be enough to thicken it up. So I'm pouring it all in there. And it thickened it up a little bit. I probably should have left more out. That's like lesson learned, especially since I don't have grout of my own. I was only dealing with what she provided in the course. So it thickened a little bit. Now she said to leave it on the piece for about 20 minutes. Like you're going to see me rub it onto the piece. And she said leave it on there for 20 minutes before wiping it off. She said 20 to 30 minutes. So I figured because my grout was so runny that maybe it would take longer to dry. So I'm going to leave mine on for 30 to 40 minutes because as you see, my consistency isn't peanut butter. It's, I don't know what it is, maybe oatmeal. Not even oatmeal. Oatmeal is thicker. Maybe grits. So usually you would just kind of scoop it out with your hands and then rub it onto the piece. But my grout is so soupy. I'm just going to pour that puppy just right onto the art. Because look at that. Oh my goodness. It's just, oof. So I was really nervous about it really setting, but here we go. So like I said, you usually would just scoop it out with your hands, but because I messed up, I just poured mine out and then now I am rubbing it in. And I'm trying to be really careful since it's so runny and I'm trying to make sure too that I fill in all of the cracks. The way I did my piece, I had a few pieces of glass that were kind of sticking out from the wood. So I was trying to make sure that I could kind of like maybe try to fill in some of those cracks and holes right at the edge. So I'm just doing the best I can, and I'm gonna let the grout actually just run over a little bit just to try to get some of the edges really good. Do you see how it's running over? Yeah, it should not be this soupy, people. I'm new to this, and even though I know that's not right. So, but it's gonna work. It's gonna work. Okay. So, if you're also doing this, the key is, at least according to the instructor, just make sure you have covered the entire piece. And if you see any places where it's not fully covered, definitely maybe scoop some more grout out and make sure that you have a nice thick coat on top. All right, so that is done. I'm actually waited for about 40 minutes and I'm just touching it just to see if it even dried a little bit. And it did. You see how it's kind of like flaking off now. So when she did her demo, hers were that flaky consistency. So I'm just taking some water. I just tried to make sure it wasn't too saturated. And I am now wiping down the piece, hoping that the grout has set. And it's kind of exciting, like revealing what's under, and seeing how the grout has interacted with the glass pieces. But know that you're going to have to wipe this a couple of times. That other paper towel I had was done. I probably should have really got a rag with a big bucket that I could just use over and over again. So I'm not wasting so many of my Viva paper towels, but that's okay. Lesson learned. But I'm just trying to get all of the edges and reveal the art. It wiped off really easily, and I think it's because I didn't leave it on too long, because she said if you leave it on too long, it gets really, really hard to wipe off. So I feel like this was like the perfect amount of time for it to solidify. And so I'm just trying to make sure I get the edges, and look what happened. Look what happened. A little piece of mosaic fell off. My heart just dropped. I think the glue that she provided in the workshop probably wasn't really strong because it's a workshop, right? You're not going to give the students your best glue because look, another piece fell off. So either the glue wasn't that strong, or maybe I just didn't put enough glue on, or maybe the sides are really sensitive. I ended up, you'll see kind of towards the end of the video, I don't have an issue with the pieces falling off because I ended up just using some wood glue in order to put the pieces back on. And I struggle a little bit because I was like, I want to make sure that I get the grout around the pieces and then glue it on, because if I had taken just the piece off and then glued it on, the grout around the pieces wouldn't look right. So, it was really tricky. But anywho, here's a little fast version of me cleaning it up. I would say have a lot of patience with this, folks, okay? Your pieces might fall off too if you're a novice like me. And you are wiping for days. Okay, I felt like I was wiping and wiping and wiping and wiping. It's almost like when you go to the beach and sand goes everywhere and it takes forever to get sand out of everything. That's what this felt like. So, right now, I'm just trying to make sure I have all of the edges covered the best I can since my edges are a little jagged. I also just wanted to make sure that I clean the wood edge of the piece really good too, because there was a lot of grout caked up on it. And yeah, so now I'm going to let that set for another hour before I wipe it yet again. And I'm just like checking all the little pieces, seeing if any of the other pieces are loose or falling off. And then what I'm also doing is I'm trying to create like a faux edge for some of the pieces or the corners with the grout. And I think, I don't know, next time if I want like sharper edges, I think maybe I should use like painter's tape or something like that around the edges in order for it to help the grout form on the edge and on the corners. If you, hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. But they were like, because the edges weren't super smooth, I had to kind of go in with my finger and try to create like a wall. But I think it worked out. At this point, the grout was a little bit tighter. So after an hour, I cleaned it off yet again. I had also glued on the pieces that have fell off. And you could kind of see like the top left where I kind of made like a little edge using the grout. And you could see there's probably like still a couple little bits on there. Okay, so last thing before we wrap up here is I didn't like the wood edges of the piece. I kind of wish I would have glued maybe some pieces of glass along the edges. Maybe for a future piece I'll do that. But instead I just took some white acrylic paint. And since the piece is predominantly white anyway, it has white grout, it has a white background, I decided to just paint the edges white. And so I'm trying to be really careful here because I probably should have waited to the next day to do this. But of course, I'm impatient and I want it to be done. So I'm trying not to mess anything up because everything, even though it's dry, of course, it's still setting. So I had to go around a couple of times just to make sure that the edges were completely covered. But as you see, they are good. I'm just putting a second coat around it just to make sure the edges are super white. And I'm not worried about it being perfect because to me this piece is like cottage chic anyway. So if there's a little streakiness or whatever, I feel like it just adds to the charm of the piece. And there we go. Wow, that was a lot, right? But it was fun. It was so fun. You'll probably see some more pieces, mosaic pieces in the new year because I signed up for a 9-week course at one of the local art factories in my area. And so I'm super, super excited about making more. Let me know if you found this to be useful. Hopefully you can learn from all of my mistakes. Check me out at nachesnow.com or thelifecleanse.co. I have a podcast, Studio 78, where I interview creatives. And I'm always on my website, newsletter, giving productivity tips to creatives like you and me. Take care. Bye.